In this video, we're going to use n8n, mention.com, and the Twitter API to build a social media agent that monitors all of Twitter for certain keywords relevant to our business. We're going to take those tweets and use AI to actually evaluate which ones make sense to automatically reply to, and use AI again to actually write and post those tweets via the Twitter API. All right, so let's now dive into a quick demo of our AI agent in action. The first thing that I want to call out here is actually the trigger we're using for this agent, and that is going to be a Slack message trigger. So whenever we have a new message that gets posted to the Slack channel we're monitoring, that's going to kick off the agent and get it into gear. So let me show you this really quick before we run through the full workflow. Inside our Slack server, we have this big feed of all of the social media mentions coming from mention.com that are related to this automation. So we can see there's questions coming up like, is there an AI tool to assist citizens? If we go down further, is there an AI tool that can legally connect JSTOR or its APIs? This entire feed of all of the AI tool keyword mentions on Twitter are going to appear here and be the starting point for our agent to get into gear. So I have a pinned Slack message here from a previous run that we're going to use for the demo. I'm going to click on execute workflow to kick things off. The first thing that's going to happen here is we're going to run through a couple of filters that are doing some preliminary checks on the Slack message to see if this is actually going to be something we want to reply to or not. We want to avoid eating up a bunch of LLM credits to either Claude or to the OpenAI API. And so we're going to exclude things like mentions not coming from Twitter. We're going to exclude any tweets that were shared by the account that we're going to be posting from. And we're going to exclude retweets just so that we're not able, so that we're going to filter out all of the noise that is coming through any of these keyword mentions. If that becomes true, we're then going to run a couple of LLM calls on top of this to actually pull out the tweet ID we want to use for our reply, and then actually run a prompt against this tweet to see if it is worth us actually going forward with a reply. And so this is a prompt we have set up here where it's basically refining the criteria of, is this a good tweet where somebody does have the intent of actually asking for an AI tool that's perfect for their use case, XYZ. So good candidates for us to evaluate are somebody tweeting, is there a good AI tool for video editing? Or what's the best AI tool to use for building my resume? Things like that will pass true, while other people that aren't actually asking a question like that are going to return false here and pass out of our automation. So that's kind of what we do to transition into the next part here in this green section, where we're going to actually take this tweet and post a reply if it makes the most sense. So jumping into the next section here, these three nodes where we fetch categories, get category content, and write the tweet are going to be very specific to our own business here. Fetch categories is calling into the API of our AI tools directory to actually get a big list of all of the category links we want to use and evaluate. Get category content is going to take all of those categories and format it in a nice format that we can pass into a prompt. And then write tweet is going to be our secret sauce that we combine together all of those categories. We pass in the original tweet that we were evaluating and ask the AI through a prompt to actually draft a good tweet for us that we can reply to that will subtly nudge people towards a specific link on the AI Tools directory website. So we can see here that the tweet you will be replying to is this one below, and the list of all of the categories in our AI Tools directory are going to dynamically appear here from what we fetched in the previous step. After that's done, we have a node here that does a short delay and finally posts our reply tweet over to Twitter, replying to that original tweet. Once that's done, we have a couple of notifications here in Slack. I'll jump back to that really quick. And we're going to see that if a tweet was successful, we'll see this check mark up here and some of the reasoning tokens that were used for our Twitter reply guy agent. So going from start to finish here, we can see that this user on Twitter asks, is there an AI tool that turns scripts into storyboards? If so, can somebody please plug me? This ended up being evaluated as true as a good candidate tweet that our agent wants to reply to, and it went forward actually leaving this reply on the tweet. So some of these may help, and then it's linking to our storyboard generators category on the AI tools directory. And so that's perfect. If I go back here and into Slack, we can actually open this on web and see our actual reply appearing to this user. And we got a couple clicks from that too. So over time, you can see that if this is an agent that's running 24/7 every single day, monitoring Twitter for any specific keywords that are useful to you, you have this opportunity to slip in and subtly promote your own business or add value to these customers or potential leads who are asking questions. Just so you guys know, we're actually giving away this automation completely for free. The n8n automation template, all of the prompts used, and all of the setup instructions can be downloaded if you join our free school community called AI Automation Mastery. All you have to do to join is click on the very first link in the description of this YouTube video, go over to the YouTube resources tab, and then you're going to be able to find the post for this exact video. Once you open that up, you can download this JSON file that contains everything you need to import this automation into n8n and replicate it. So now that we've gone through the demo for our AI agent, I want to take you guys through step by step to show you how you can set up and build an agent just like this in your own business. Like what we were discussing earlier, the very first trigger for this automation is going to be a message that gets shared into Slack with all of the keyword alerts off of Twitter. So what we have to do is actually jump over to mention.com to build this out ourselves. So once you're inside of Mention, go to the feed tab, click on add a new alert, and then you're going to be thrown into the selection here to choose what type of alert that you want to set up. I like to go forward with the standard alert option here in the middle, as it gives a good balance between ease of use to set up, as well as gives you a little bit more flexibility to filter out some of the noise that you're going to see through the stream of information that comes in on social media. So let's click that, click on next, and let's get started building this out. I'm going to go with AI tools again, but this is going to be something, if you're building this yourself, you really need to think deeply around what are the questions and posts that you see come up most often from your target customer or target lead on Twitter. So for me, this is still going to be AI tools, and so I'll start with that. And then we get into this section here where we're able to actually build out a more advanced query. So if we want AI tools, but say for instance, we don't want free AI tools to be included, we can actually do this and not operation and exclude free AI tools from the query. So we'll be able to match here on all of the keyword mentions that say AI tools, but if somebody's looking for a free AI tool, we'll be able to actually exclude that. While you're building this out, you are able to see this feed of social media mentions that come up on the right side. So you can kind of do a sanity check to see how much noise is coming through and if you need to tweak this query a little bit as you're building it out. Let me show you what the final one looks like actually that we're using on production right now for the recap in our AI tools directory. So if I go back here, pull up the dashboard, go to our feed, and then click on Edit Alert. We're going to be able to see that we are building out an alert mostly based off of that question intent for people searching for specific AI tools. And so we're looking for phrases like, is there an AI tool? Is there an AI tool that? How can I use AI to? Things of that nature we found to give us the best hit rate. So I'd encourage you guys to experiment with this. Make sure you're monitoring the feed for any noise or tweets you don't want to be included that are coming through before you get your final query into place. This is going to be an iterative process, and so make sure you are monitoring what comes through. Let's keep this as it is for now. Click on Next. And for our use case here, since we're building a Twitter reply guy, let's just have Twitter selected for now. Hit Next. Let's keep this to English. And we can skip through the social pages and review sites, since that's not really applicable to what we're trying to build right now. If you wanted to extend this automation in the future though, I would encourage you to check out those different options. As you see new alerts coming in, you may be able to actually automatically add replies to different websites like Reddit, like Facebook, and other social media platforms. And so we're just going to keep this focused to Twitter for now, but that's definitely an extension point where you can take this and expand it in the future. Tools test. There we go. So we have our new alert created. This is going to go ahead and create our feed of social media mentions specifically on Twitter according to those rules that we've set up. The next step here is actually going to be connecting your social mention feed to a Slack channel that you want to use. So if I go back to the current AI tools query that we have set up, edit this alert, and then come down to the bottom, this is where we're going to be able to actually add this to your own Slack channel. So once you click that for the first time, it's going to prompt you through a couple of steps to connect it to your Slack channel. Make sure you go through that and have it set up for the channel you actually want to receive these notifications into. So we have AI tools mention set up here. That's the feed that we saw earlier where every single mention was getting posted into Slack. The other thing I want to call it here is actually going to be this setting. We do have this set as all new mentions, and we have a low influencer score. This is kind of like a filter you can set up on all the mentions coming through. So if there's somebody who has more of a low following coming through, that gives you a way to actually filter out. For our case, we did choose the filter, the influencer score of 5 here, because we do still want low account followings to appear in our social media feed so we can reply to each and every person. This is going to be something, again, you have to iterate and tune for whatever your use case is. So after you get those settings in place, you're going to be able to see those social media mentions starting to come through just like we showed earlier. And once that's all said and done, you'll get this real-time feed just like this. All right, so now that we have mention.com configured with a brand new alert that is going to be looking for AI tools keywords all throughout Twitter, the next step is actually to jump back into n8n and build this automation out. I want to go node through node here to show you guys exactly what is happening, how data is getting passed through, and what are going to be the optimal parts of this automation to tweak for your specific use case. So like what we mentioned before, the very first entry point into this automation is going to be the Slack trigger node. This is a Slack trigger that we have configured to actually trigger when a new message is getting posted to a specified Slack channel. So make sure you have that option selected here from the dropdown, and then make sure you have a correct value actually specified here under what channel to watch. Depending on how you set up your Slack integration, you can either paste in your channel ID that you have matching from the mention keywords getting posted to, or you can grab it from a list. That's the first step. The next step here is actually pretty important, as it's going to allow you to filter out a lot of the noise that's coming through or avoid accidental executions eating up a lot of your quota in your n8n instance. So what we have here is a set of 3 filters that are actually going to skip out and exclude messages from coming through if they don't match the criteria that we specify. So the first one here is filtering only when Twitter is the source of the social media mention. So in mention, like what we were going through earlier, they can actually scan other places on the internet, like Reddit, like Facebook groups, and other places. And so this is just a quick sanity check we have here, where we're actually looking that there is this attachment field that exists on the incoming message. That's something that tells us that, yes, this is going to be a Twitter social media mention, and lets us continue forward. The next one here is actually going to be excluding what we call our self account. This is the username of the Twitter account we're going to be posting and replying to. This way, so when we actually reply to a Twitter thread where somebody's asking about AI tools, if that gets picked up again in our mention keyword monitoring, we're going to make sure not to reply any further and create some sort of infinite loop. And so this is our Twitter username we're going to try and avoid and filter out ever replying to, since it's the one that we own and are going to be replying from. Moving on, we have this exclude retweet option here, where we're actually inspecting the attachment.text value of the incoming message, and that's going to let us know that this is going to be a retweet. So we're looking for this RT value actually in the text attachment, and if that appears there, we don't want to deal with it, because that's just going to lead to us using up our budget of how many API requests we can respond and actually send out through the Twitter API. And it's going to cause our account to look more like a spam account. So that's a good check to have in place to avoid excessive usage. So if all of these return true, that kind of brings us into the next section of this automation, where we're going to go ahead and try and extract the tweet ID that was passed through into the message. This is something that we're going to do by actually analyzing the JSON representation of the entire Slack message. So we're not just getting the tweet content ourselves here. There's a lot of extra metadata that comes in through every single Slack message. And so in order to get the tweet ID out, we have this very short prompt we're using. Help me extract the tweet ID from the open on web URL included in this JSON payload that I received from a Slack message webhook. Basically, what this is doing is we're going to look for the button metadata inside this JSON here and pull out the tweet ID we're going to be able to use, reference, and fetch the full contents of later on. This is a pretty quick and easy prompt. And so we opted to use GPT-4o Mini here as it's a low-cost option to do some of this grunt work. The output of that is going to give us this tweet ID, which is exactly what we want. Going forward here, we're actually going to then go into this HTTP request node and use this secret API that's able to give us the text content of a tweet. And so if I pull this up here by clicking this option, grabbing the real URL of this cdn.syndication.tw image domain, this is going to be something we can copy, paste over here, and we can see JSON representation of the entire text of this tweet. And so this is something that's used to power kind of the image preview service on Twitter, but we can use it for our use case to get the full text of a tweet without having to dig into our Twitter API budget, because it's pretty limited on the free and low level plans. And so we want to get around that if we can. So again, we're going to fetch that tweet content and then output that here as JSON. So here's that text we saw earlier that was inside that real tweet. Next, we have a node here that's going to actually just grab this specific text content from that. We don't care right now about any of the extra metadata, really just interested in what this user wrote for further evaluation. Once that's complete, we then go into this LLM call that's going to actually evaluate this tweet and make a decision. And so the way that we've structured this is actually by giving it a system prompt and then a more detailed user prompt, which is going to take the tweet as an input and make a decision on taking into factors like you're in the context of a community manager and your goal is to make a decision if this is a good tweet for us to reply to in order to promote our AI tools directory. And so if we pull this up, we have a little bit of that context getting set up here, where we're setting them as an expert community manager whose job is to specialize in actually promoting our AI tools directory and making a decision on what tweets we should reply to. The other part of this gives even more context here around trying to make that decision. So at the top of the prompt here, we have the basic instructions. So I want you to read this tweet and make a decision if you think a response with a link to the AI tools directory page that would help answer the question asked in the provided tweet. So that's the basic setup here. As we go forward, we give a bunch of examples on what are good tweets that would be considered for reply and what are some common cases we should avoid. Very much depending on how your business is structured or your specific use case for an automation like this, this is where most of the work is going to be done on writing a good prompt here to find out what is an eligible tweet we want to reply to, or what do we want to exclude and skip over. It's a pretty tough problem that's, again, going to be probably iterative for you to solve, because you want to lock that line of avoiding spam while still reaching as many people as possible. And so we'll have this prompt shared inside the n8n template that we're including for download. And so you can see an example of how kind of we reverse engineered and thought through this problem ourselves. The last thing I want to note here is actually at the very bottom, where we're providing the context of the tweet that should be evaluated. And so the text content of the tweet we just fetched gets passed into here for the LLM call to actually make a decision. In this case, again, it's a pretty simple prompt, and so we're going to be using GPT-4o Mini to make that decision for us. All right, so then moving on to kind of section number 2 here, after we've evaluated the tweet and made a decision, is going to be moving into the process where we are drafting a tweet reply and going to actually post that to x.com. Depending on the result of this, so we get a true or false if the tweet is a good reply candidate. We're going to go into this node and do a quick check to see if that value is true or false. If it is true, we're going to continue down this chain of actually writing the tweet. If it's false, we're going to jump into this branch here and actually share a message into Slack around the decision we made. And so if it is not a good candidate, we're going to share a message with the chain of thought tokens that explain, hey, this is why the LLM thought it did not make a lot of sense to continue trying to write a reply here. This, for us, when we were building this automation, this was very helpful for us to debug anything that was going on or to tune the prompt before this even further. If it was something that we disagreed with and thought it was actually a good tweet to reply to, that was a good hint for us to come back to this prompt, evaluate tweet, and add in some more examples or tune that even further. So again, as you're seeing more and more data flow through, especially since this is an open-ended problem, it's very good to have those chain of thought tokens actually shared in a Slack message for you to walk through when you're reviewing the decisions made. Finally here, we leave a reaction on the on the Slack message itself. And so when we're scrolling through that feed of Slack messages, it's really easy for us to see what tweets were replied to, what tweets were excluded. All right, so then jumping back to the true path here for when we do detect if a tweet candidate is a good candidate we want to proceed with. For these top 3 nodes here, these again are going to be very specifically tuned for our business, AI tools, and the AI tools directory. So the first thing we do here is actually make an HTTP request to our own API that gives us a list of categories. This gives us 332 categories that we have on the directory, and it's going to be something that we use to bundle up and build context that we're going to push into a future prompt. And so the next 2 nodes here are going to be doing exactly that. Get category content is a really short snippet of code that we wrote that's able to take that incoming list of 332 items, iterate over each of those items, and build up a nicely formatted text content that can be passed into a prompt. So I'm going to jump ahead and show that to you here and how that works and gets used on our final prompt, which is going to be writing the tweet itself. So when I blow this up here and scroll down to the bottom, we can see where we are referencing the output of previous nodes to actually get to the tweet that is going to be used that we write our reply to, as well as this reference here to the category content fetched from the AI tools API that we bundled up together. And so we went from that raw JSON response to a nicely formatted list of all of the different categories along with links to that category on the AI tools website. And so we can see we have AI video to blog tools, a brief description about that category, as well as a URL to that category page on the AI tools website. So the prompt in the large language model is able to take in all of this information and make a decision on what is the best category link to reply with. Going back up here to the prompt, I'll share a little bit more about how we were able to write this. Very similar to the evaluate one, but with many more examples. So this is the basic setup for this is I want you to write a reply to a tweet that I am providing below that will help this person out by sharing a relevant link to the AI tools directory along with a short note. So that's the initial setup here for the prompt. Expanding this further, we're able to get into more detailed instructions, adding in what we want to avoid in our response, adding in some anti-patterns we want the prompt in the large language model to avoid when it's creating its output, and finally finish up with adding in multiple different examples. And so here's how we've kind of bundled this together and presented the examples. So here are some examples we've replied to in the past to help you out when crafting a great reply tweet. Please read these. And so then we have an initial tweet on one of these examples. And then we have a reply tweet that we used to be able to give the LLM here more context, more examples. So when it's seen a brand new tweet in evaluating what it should write, it's able to look to that as a good reference. This has been something that's been super effective in our own prompting, and I do recommend including examples when your use case allows for it. So again, this full prompt here will be included inside the download template at the very end. So make sure you stay watching until the very end to be able to grab that. So that's the bulk of the AI logic as part of this workflow. The next steps are really pretty simple. I'll activate these here so we can see it, but we're going to add in a quick delay here of just over a minute so we're not immediately replying or making Twitter's API look a bit suspicious to replying immediately to any real user tweets. In post-reply tweet, we are going to be using the n8n node to actually go ahead and create a real tweet that we're going to reply with. Pretty simple to do. All we have to do is connect our credentials through the x.com OAuth API. There is a guide linked on n8n that shows you how to set this up. We're going to use the tweet resource, and we're going to use the option create, which is used for creating, quoting, or replying to an already existing tweet. Under the text value, all we're going to do here is reference our write tweet node that we were previously at. Go ahead and get the output of that node in this tweet content value. That's going to be the text that was generated by our call to the LLM. In this case, we are actually using Claude 3.5 here because this is more of a creative writing task. And from our testing, we found that Claude is a great is a great model to apply to that use case. So we have our text content for the tweet we want to create. And the last thing we have to do here is actually add in this option here for replying to a tweet. If we select by ID from this value, we can actually go back and reference our extract tweet ID node that we had previously up here in kind of phase one of our automation, grab the ID that was outputted here, and set that on the reply to tweet ID in this value. That way that we're not just posting out into the void, we're actually going to be creating this as a real reply. Once that is done, we're going to go forward and actually share what we wrote in Slack. This way, for us internally, while we're monitoring this AI agent at work, we can see what the agent is writing, what its thinking tokens are, and the decisions that it actually made. And so we can see here, if I open up the text, I went forward with replying with this tweet. Some of these hiring tools may help match interns to companies, along with a link to our AI hiring tools category page. And then below, I'm actually using this reasoning section here to share in the thought process that the LLM was using when drafting its response. Again, highly recommend doing this for any automation that you're building by setting a chain of thought type in your structured output parser and giving it a note like this in its description. So the sequential reasoning to make a decision on the most helpful page to share from the AI tools and how you decided to write your helpful note in the tweet reply. This is something, again, I can't stress this enough, has been invaluable for us building better automations and writing better prompts, as it gives you a good feedback loop and a little bit of insight into what the AI or LLM was doing based off of your prompt. And so we are taking this chain of thought value and are going to share that in the Slack message that we are writing right here. And so we have the actual output from the write tweet LLM call, as well as those chain of thought reasoning tokens also getting shared inside a Slack message. And then the final thing here is just leaving a green check mark reaction on the message. So when we're scrolling through that feed, we're able to see what the agent was replying to and what the agent decided to not reply to. All right, guys, that's it for today's video. Really appreciate you watching all the way through and hope you're able to learn something. Now, I know the Twitter agent we went off and built today was customized specifically for the AI tools directory and website, but I want you to know the goal with this was to actually showcase a practical automation example that uses real data coming in from Twitter, uses AI to analyze those tweets, and uses AI again to actually write a real reply. So like I mentioned before, you can actually download the full n8n automation template, all prompts used in this video, and any setups instructions you need completely for free just by joining our community called AI Automation Mastery. All you gotta do is click on that very first link in the description of this video, and you're gonna be taken there to get access to everything. Finally, please make sure you hit that like and subscribe button below, as we're gonna be releasing a ton of content related to AI automation tutorials and how to learn how to use AI in general. So join our community, leave a comment on what automation you actually wanna see next, and then we'll catch you next time.